Okay, welcome back to another video. It has been a while. Today we are doing a top 10 movies of 2021. We're a few years behind, but we'll catch up. So it has been a while. I changed the way I kind of wanted to do these videos. Instead, in previous years, I've kind of just gotten them out as soon as the year has finished and ignored like movies that I wanted to watch but I wasn't able to get yet. Going forwards, I'm kind of just gonna wait until every single movie that came out that year that I do want to watch, I have a chance to watch it. So everything from 2021 I have wanted to watch, I have now watched. So this is a definitive top 10 movies of 2021 for me. So we're just going to start it off with the worst movie of the year, some honorable mentions, and then we'll just get straight into the top 10. So starting off, worst movie of the year for me of 2021 was The Kingsman, the sequel to Kingsman, both the first one and Secret Service. This to me was just incredibly bland and directionless, and I was confused for a while as to if it was even like a sequel to Kingsman or not, because the marketing for it was not very clear. Like, it's set like hundreds of years in the past. It's based on establishing like how the Kingsman came about, so it doesn't really have any of the characters from the previous movies. It's an entirely new thing. But on top of that, it didn't even really feel like it was in the style of Kingsman 1 and 2. It's been a while now since I've seen it, but there were really just like no redeeming factors that I can think about it. Like, I watched it in the movies, in the movie theater, and it was the closest I got to of like leaving the theater halfway, which I never do. I don't know if I've ever done that, but it was so boring. I just felt like it's just a pure waste of time. Like, it was like halfway around the movie when I'm like, I'm getting nothing out of this. I could not think of like one thing that redeemed it for me. It was like awful as an action, awful as a drama, awful as stylized. Like, there wasn't any like the stylized action that you know from like Kingsman 1 and 2. That just like, if they attempted it, I didn't know, because it just felt fucking boring as hell. I'm not sure like how well it was reviewed, but for me at least, I couldn't stand it. It was so boring. So Kingsman is my worst movie of the year. For honorable mentions this year, I only have one, which is The Fallout, the Jenna Ortega school shooter movie. I think this was one of the last movies that I watched for 2021 before I like decided to make this video. I liked the concept a lot. The one thing I was unsure about was its execution. Like, I was kind of thinking about this to myself of like, is it less tasteful if the movie is designed to have a broad appeal, or is that just spreading the message to more people about something like this, you know? I don't have an answer to that question. That was just something that kind of I was thinking about after I watched the movie, about like, do I think this is like, what intentions is this done with to like have a broad appeal? It felt like it was made to be watched by a lot of people. Like, it's not, I don't really have a good explanation for it. I just like, it's a very watchable movie. Like, casual moviegoers could enjoy it in a way. I think it is a bit ambitious as well. It bites off more than it can chew. I think there's too many complex relationships going on, and there's not enough screen time to like properly explore and resolve all of them. Like, you have the main one, which is like with the two kids, and then her with her parents, her with the other guy. Oh, I don't know. It's been a while. It's been a while for all of these movies now. This is one of the downsides of waiting so long before doing a top 10 of 2021. There's nothing wrong with having those like relationships, but I think there's just not enough screen time that they all feel like fully realized and like have a satisfying conclusion to them, if that makes sense. I also have mixed feelings about the ending where she gets like the message that there's another school shooting and she gets like a panic attack, because to me the movie felt more about like her personal journey through the grief that she encounters, but then at the very end it's more just suddenly giving us a message that like events like this happen like regularly and all the time, which takes the focus off her personal story. So to me that felt like a bit of like mixed messages, where like, are you trying to focus more on like how this impacts an individual or how this impacts a society? And it felt like mostly it was like the film was focused on how this impacts an individual, because it's, you know, exploring all her relationships and everything and how they've been affected by this event. But then the end is just kind of more so acknowledging how this impacts like a society in general. So that I was like, I don't know. But other than that, like, it was still a good movie. But yeah, those were the reasons why it didn't quite make my top 10. If I probably would have been like number 11 if I had a top 11, but yeah. Okay, going into top 10 now. So with number 10, we have The Suicide Squad, the James Gunn movie. This was very much a James Gunn movie. If you've seen any of his like earlier ones, like Slither or Super, it's contrasting like incredibly morbid setups with comedic payoffs, and just like jumping back and forth between those two extremes to like get the most out of you between each one. And it still has like very sincere moments as well, like James Gunn movies do. Like they're very like heartfelt. It feels like he challenges himself sometimes, but it's like, how much can I push this movie with like ridiculous, like insane stuff, whether it be like gore or like just straight up like depressing topics or something, or morbid aspects or concepts, but then still having it have like a heartfelt, sincere moment, you know? I think he's very good at that, at like balancing tone and making both sides work, and just like, it's fun seeing him like play with that in general, like on the screen. I think I just have a few examples of that written down, like the opening scene where half of them die, like like if you've seen it, they introduce all the characters of the Suicide Squad, like a giant team, and they go in for their first mission, and just like over half of them are just killed off instantly. The other scene was also them killing everyone who was on their side in the rebel camp. Like they infiltrate a camp thinking it's the villains, and they like covertly just kill everyone, and then it turns out those were the people that they were meant to be collaborating with. So stuff like that, where like on its face it's like really just grim and like just horrible and like nasty, but he just portrays it in a way where he then just turns it into a joke. So it was fun seeing that. For number 9, I have Don't Look Up, the Adam McKay movie, I think is his name, the guy who did Anchorman and everything. This honestly works very well as an apocalypse film, like just by itself, because it's very like tense and stressful at times, due to like that sense of impending doom of the meteorite hitting the Earth. I would say the big letdown for this, for me, was the editing. It was very like experimental editing, and I don't really think it paid off at all, because it was just a series of very weird choices. Like they liked doing like a lot of hard cuts out of tense scenes for comedic effect, but it just didn't work like a single time for me. It just like kept falling flat. I don't know, they tried, they failed, so it was kind of frustrating. It doesn't ruin the movie, but it's like by far like the thing that I enjoyed the least about it was the editing, which is weird. Like you usually don't, you know, I mean, editing is usually very subtle, and it's not something that you notice as being like particularly bad or good, I would say. specifically to like the common moviegoer, you know. I think it probably pushes it trying to be comedic too much. Like, the comedy is already coming from the absurdity of all of the characters treating an apocalyptic event with such triviality. Like, that's like the main joke throughout the whole movie, is that like there's a meteorite coming and then no one is taking it seriously. So I think that's enough comedic material there, but then they're trying to like accentuate it or increase it by having this editing style, and it just doesn't work at all for me. Leonardo DiCaprio's acting as well as a nervous scientist is great. It's kind of fun seeing him in that role of like playing a more like nerdy guy. I just thought he did a good job of it, because he also gets like his ego inflated as well. So there's like a whole character arc of like being the humble scientist and then kind of getting a taste of fame and everything while still trying to retain his like scientific nature of like being, you know, a very like logical person. So it was fun seeing him like act that out. It's not a role that I usually see him in. For number 8, I have Godzilla vs. Kong, the, I think third or fourth Godzilla movie. I think I watched this during COVID era, I believe, like one of the movies coming out of a lockdown. So it was good to go out, and it was such a good crowd movie. Like, this was definitely like one to watch in theaters, because it's just, you know, such a typical like blockbuster, like big action set pieces and everything. It was very fun to watch in theaters. My complaints about it aren't really anything different from what you've heard already. Like, it's let down by like a lot of just embarrassing dialogue and boring human characters. Like, if you're watching a movie called Godzilla vs. Kong, you're there for Godzilla vs. Kong. So cutting to like having these deep emotional moments with characters that like, I don't really like care about that much. Like, in a way you kind of need to have it, because you can't just have like 90 minutes of Godzilla and Kong fighting. There needs to be like a little bit of up and down. Like, it can't just always be that like height of action. You need to have some contrast, but it just failed to pull me in or make me care about them more, really. I just kept wanting them to get back to Godzilla vs. Kong fighting again. So yeah, take that for what it is. Mechagodzilla as well was very hype in the theaters. I got so excited about that when I saw that. So it was a very fun experience. I think I probably honestly might not have even have enjoyed the movie as much if I just saw it at home. It was definitely one that was like good to watch in theaters with a big audience and just having that like audience reaction around you. Number 7 on my list is No Sudden Move. I don't know the name of the director off the top of my head, but I've written down that he did the Ocean's 11 movies and it has a strong heist energy. This I really liked because I didn't understand what was happening all the time, but I enjoyed that about the movie, because it felt like the movie wasn't holding my hand or speaking directly to me. It was just showing me a series of events happening, and that I'm kind of just like a spectator to these events, really. Maybe I'm just a stupid idiot, but like there were parts where I was just like not really getting what was going on, but I don't know, I enjoyed that in a way. The dialogue and the cinematography kind of just like kept me engaged regardless. So like, even if I don't fully know like every character's motivation or what's happening at the time, it was kind of just interesting seeing the style in which it was done, and I enjoyed the individual scenes themselves. So just like the characters talking just was compelling to me. I was just enjoying it. The ending probably gets a little too out of hand and a bit convoluted, but for the most part, as I said, yeah, it's just like the cinematography and the dialogue are compelling enough to make this like an enjoyable watch for me. Yeah. For number 6, we have Pig, the movie with Nicolas Cage, trying to find a pig. This I had heard good things about from several people. I'm glad I watched it as well, because I found it to be like a very fantastic exploration of grief and loss. Probably one of like the best films, honestly, that kind of cover those two topics, which is interesting because it's I've written that it's a very small story, but everything feels so impactful as a result due to the small stakes. Like, there's nothing extreme on the line, but because of that, like, when even like very mild things happen, it has a much bigger impact because that's closer to the peak of what the stakes are for the movie. Like, as I said, it's just a guy trying to find his pet pig for 90 minutes. And through that, you like kind of rediscover like some of his old relationships that he had with people, and you find out like who he was, who he used to be, and just his process of like going through that and everything is very nice to watch. But yeah, it was a very emotional movie. I definitely recommend that one. Number 5, we have Wrath of Man, the Guy Ritchie movie. He's been pumping out movies lately. He's done so many. Out of all of his movies, like, I think this one focuses a lot more on just pure action rather than like his kind of slick, like cheeky like dialogue he likes to do. I don't know how to describe it exactly, but like very like back and forthy. I don't want to say quippy, but jokesy. I don't know. I really don't know. If you've seen a Guy Ritchie movie, you kind of know, like The Gentleman, shit like that. There's not as much of that. It's a lot more focused on like the action in this movie. Not to say that it ignores plot and story, but just like specifically that sort of dialogue that he does. There's not as much of it in this movie. It is a very classic revenge movie for the most part, but what I liked about it was the person getting revenge takes it too far, and by the end there is just nothing but death in his wake. Like, I like the title Wrath of Man because it kind of suits the movie, that it is mainly a revenge movie about him like getting revenge for the guy who killed his son, but on top of that, like throughout the movie you realize that like regardless of people's motives and everything, like whether good, bad, or anywhere in between, they all end up dead anyway. Like by the end of the movie, every single character that I'm aware of at least is killed. Like he's the only one left in the end. Every other character dies. So that was kind of like an interesting thing to think about in a way, that like it doesn't like explore that too deeply. It kind of just like presents that idea for you that like there were characters in the movie that were like trying to do the right thing and trying to do good things, but they just died because like they were part of this guy's wrath, the Wrath of Man, trying to get revenge for his son. The thing that brought it down for me was that there's some excessive like flashbacks and flash forwards. Like halfway through the movie, I think they kind of introduce his backstory as to like who he is and why he's doing this. And that goes on for a while. That combined with there's also like a group of bad guys who are responsible for the death of his son, who are like bank robbers. They like do heists and stuff, and it's just showing them like organizing their like plans and everything, and those sequences just feel like very like drawn out flashbacks. I think it needed to just stay in the one time period a little bit more, because it felt like in a way that, as I don't know if Guy Ritchie wrote it or not, but like let's just assume he did. As he was writing it, it felt like I was like, oh, the audience needs to know these guys' backstory. I'll just say like we'll just put in a flashback here, and yeah, we find out everything about them, and it's like the flashback goes for like 10-12 minutes in like your less than 2 hour movie. And that happens like several times as well. So I think if it just eased up with those, it would have been a lot better. But still, really good movie. I think probably my favorite Guy Ritchie movie, and probably one of my favorite action movies, I would say. Yeah. Number 4 on this list, we have Encanto, the Disney movie, which is, it only came out in 2021. This I really enjoyed. I nearly didn't watch it. I'm not sure exactly what it was that made me watch it, but I'm glad I did, because it's probably one of my favorite Disney movies now. I really enjoyed that there were kind of lower stakes in a way, and that there's no villain per se. Like with these Disney movies, you know, there's the obvious thing where there's like the forced villain, like, you know, from Frozen, that it's just like, it feels like there's a villain because there has to be one. Whereas in this one, it's just like a family drama. Like, it's just, you know, like a family dispute, which was really refreshing, because it was just like, okay, it feels different. It doesn't feel like I've seen this movie already. So I really enjoyed that a lot. It was an intriguing mystery that has like a very logical revelation with nice payoffs as well. I think that's what set it apart from most of the other Disney movies for me, and that's why I enjoyed it so much, because it didn't feel like the twist towards the end, like it made like just so much sense. Like, you could just see it coming. I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean that as in, like, the twist doesn't just come out of nowhere with like no reason, with no like rhyme or reason. It makes complete sense. Where I'm like, oh, well, yeah, that makes sense. The way I'm phrasing it makes it sound like just a lame twist, but no, it was very good. That it just was very coherent and not just like some random crap that they like pull out of their ass. The songs were also very visually creative. Like, they weren't afraid to just really kind of push things and let realism go for a little bit for the sake of the musical piece, which I enjoyed. Like, if you're using animation as a medium, like, use it, you know, you can do literally whatever you want. So it was nice to see them not afraid to just do some wacky stuff, you know. There's like dancing donkeys and whatever. I'm like, all right, that's good. That's good. You have some dancing donkeys in your movie. Moving on to number 3 now, we have The Novice, a movie starring, I can't remember her name. It's the actress from The Orphan and Orphan First Kill, Isabel Fuhrman. That's it. She's not in that much, but I knew her from Orphan and Orphan First Kill. This one almost earned number 1 on my list from the premise alone. I love this premise so much. It's so cool. I find it very compelling that someone's uprising is simultaneously their downfall in a way. That it's so elegant, you know? I really like that. This had the potential to be like a 5-star movie for me if it was executed better. It just kind of falls flat a little bit with its execution, which is the problem. It's kind of like a poor choice of soundtrack, and they get a bit too excessive with it, like kind of just using it too much and not knowing when to just keep things quiet to like raise some tension. I think it also needed a steadier escalation of the protagonist's condition, Doll. For those of you who are unaware, the premise of the movie is basically she gets into rowing and she is compelled to be the best at all costs, no matter what, and she puts her like mental health, her physical health, and her relationships with the people around her to the wayside to do everything she can to be the best, basically. And so it's kind of watching her life. It's so horrible, but it really rung home for me that it's like her life is falling apart around her, and she doesn't even understand it or realize it because she's so obsessed with just this simple thing of like being the best rower. I think it spoke to me a lot because I think we probably all know either people like that or have kind of seen with that mentality before in people, of like doing whatever it takes to be the best, you know, but portraying that in a negative light. I really, really liked the premise so much. So that being said, I think it needed a steadier escalation of Doll's condition of that, of like her getting more and more obsessed. She's kind of, it's hard because in real life there wouldn't be a steady escalation. It would just be that is their personality, you know, like they don't pick that up as a trait over like the course of a couple months. That's like, you build that up into that's who that person is for like their whole life, if you know what I mean. We already begin the movie with her being very like deranged and unstable. It would have been nicer to have that like slowly escalate over time, or have those like tendencies to be like drawn out of her more by her sudden infatuation with rowing, just for like the sake of the traditional, like, you know, steady escalation of events in your movie. But regardless, it's still definitely worth watching. It just brought down by like a couple of things, but the premise itself is just so good. Like, Number 2, we have Last Night in Soho, the Edgar Wright movie. His previous movie before this, Baby Driver, I didn't enjoy that much. I still liked it, but it's my least favorite Edgar Wright. Oh no, sorry, it's my second least favorite Edgar Wright movie. My least favorite Edgar Wright movie being Scott Pilgrim, but that's a topic for another time. I was worried that Edgar Wright has started to fall off after Baby Driver. I was like, it's not look. I didn't like Baby Driver that much. What if his next movie isn't that good? But I am very glad that Last Night in Soho held up, because this movie was really good. I loved this. This was definitely one of my favorite Edgar Wright movies. I don't know if it's my favorite, but it's up there. It's nice because it was something different as well, like to his previous movies. It's not a comedy or anything. It's essentially a horror, really. There's a lot of twists and turns in the story to keep it engaging and to keep you guessing. Like, there's several different points in the movie where things kind of change. So it keeps you very like engrossed throughout the whole movie from start to finish. As usual, Edgar Wright is obviously doing absolutely everything and anything he can with the visuals. It's such a creative movie to look at and to watch. Just everything, like, it's kind of crazy. Like, yeah, he just, you know it if you've seen an Edgar Wright movie. Like, he doesn't waste any potential. He'll just portray things in a way that other directors don't do, you know? I can't think of like specific examples in this movie, but like it's just scattered throughout from start to finish. It's just like, it is a complete treat to watch. The movie explores a lot as well. It's not just one specific message or moral. Like, it kind of goes through a few things of like nostalgia and how that can be a negative force. Goes through like the misogyny of like previous generations. It's like separate from nostalgia entirely. It goes through like a lot of different like themes and ideas, and they can be interpreted in multiple different ways as well. He doesn't really have any one specific message that he sends to you. He doesn't say like, I think you should believe this about this. He just presents these things in a very creative way, and leave some of it up to your interpretation for how, you know, you want to perceive things, which was really good. A lot of people didn't like this one as much as I did, but I really enjoyed it. Yeah, I thought it was good. It was especially fun seeing him do something different as well, that it was a horror movie, because he hasn't... Oh, I mean, Shaun of the Dead, I guess, but like, that's a comedy horror movie. This is a just horror movie, really, you know. So having like a much more significant focus on the horror aspect rather than the comedy aspect. I enjoyed seeing that a lot. So I definitely recommend Last Night in Soho, even if other people may say otherwise. I don't know if people like hated on it, but from what I read, a lot of people didn't enjoy it as much as I did. But I really enjoyed it a lot. It's my number 2 movie of the year, so definitely go watch it. And for number 1, our number 1, well, not our number 1, it's mine. It's my top 10 list. My number 1 movie of the year was Belle. I can't remember the director's name, but it's by the guy who did The Girl Who Leapt Through Time, even though I haven't seen that. This movie had like a near perfect character arc for me, in my opinion. There was a point in the movie where I was getting a little frustrated because I didn't understand what they were trying to do with her character or where they were trying to go with it. And then it reached this point where everything suddenly clicks, and I just went like, oh, okay, yeah, I get it now. And then everything just made sense from there on out. Just like a fantastic conclusion that utilizes everything from the plot. Like there is nothing that is wasted or left unused. Like everything feeds back into the story. Everything has a purpose. Like every single little detail is like considered and matters and is important. Which was so nice. Fantastic script economy, if you know what I'm talking about. The musical numbers were also really nice because that's something you don't usually see in anime. I think I read about it afterwards, and the director wanted it to be like a straight up musical, but he realized he couldn't really get away with that, so he kind of settled for just having like a few musical numbers. It would have been interesting to see an anime musical if that would work or not, conceptually, but I mean, what he ended up with, I enjoyed a lot. So they didn't feel excessive for me, the musical numbers, and they were all very memorable. They all fit the theme and the tone of wherever the story was at that point. I remember when I finished the movie, I was just like listening back to those songs like a lot of times that you do when you watch like a movie that has like songs that absolutely hit. The only negative I have is that it was brought down, I wrote this, only brought down by cringe anime humor, which is just like, yeah, it only happens like a couple of times. I only remember one specific instance of it in the movie. There are probably some other ones that aren't coming to mind at the moment, but I don't really care for humor in anime most of the time. Like, I very rarely find that sense of humor funny. So I'm glad there wasn't much of it. But like, it came up a couple times. I'm just like, this is not funny. This is embarrassing. But other than that, it was such a good movie. I've only seen it once, actually. I've been thinking about it a couple of times, was going to rewatch it, but I haven't gotten around to it yet. I do have the extremely special collector's edition. I'll grab that. Oh, yeah, I got the like biggest box set that you could possibly get that has everything in it because I enjoyed it a lot. It's a good movie, very good movie. I suppose in a way it is, by the way, an adaptation of Beauty and the Beast. That didn't really even play into my thoughts on the movie. Like, it has some aspects of that, I guess, but like, I suppose what I mean by that is like, don't watch it if you're looking for an adaptation of Beauty and the Beast. In a way, that sounds like a really negative thing to say about it now, that it like that doesn't even matter, but it just uses that idea and that concept and takes it from a completely different angle in a way. So definitely worth a watch, especially if you haven't heard of it. I recommend you watch it because it's good. I haven't seen that many anime movies, but this is easily without a doubt my favorite. I wholeheartedly recommend Belle, my number 1 movie of the year for 2021. So, those are my top 10 movies for 2021. Let me know what you think in the comments. What do you agree with? What do you disagree with? What have you seen or haven't you seen? Was there anything that I missed that you enjoyed in 2021 that maybe I'm not even aware of? Thank you very much for watching, everyone, and I will see you all later.